many times, but the people that run it ought to be ashamed. MSDNC, a guy named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a disgrace. He's a weak, pathetic disgrace.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran's committed to peace?
Yes, they violated it, but Israel violated it. Israel, we made a deal. They came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. When they say you have 12 hours, in the first hour, just happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm happy Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. Well, we basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
You generally not, Dr. West.
Like you said,
like
we
military
are told there's
action.
a ceasefire in place. However, we're also hearing that missiles are being launched from Iran. And also, there seems to be a staggered ceasefire where Donald Trump has given Israel an extra 12 hours to do what they want to do, and then it should be fully in place. It's a fragile ceasefire at best. And of course, it's nowhere with the Israeli attacks on the Iranian nuclear program that then suddenly seem to be morphing into the possibility of regime change. We've had the Americans come in. So it's an incredibly escalatory environment that suddenly seems to be on pause of this announcement of a potential ceasefire. Now, the concern is, of course, the Iranians are incredibly weak and they have shown that they can still launch missiles. The decision to go for Al Adid base, the largest American base in the region, and also Qatar, that traditionally has been an ally, was quite surprising. I, for one, was expecting that they would attack American bases in Iraq and Syria because that would be politically less costly for the Iranians. Having said that, we've seen the reaction from the Gulf countries where, of course, they've condemned back on Qatar, but it has been very limited because what the Qataris said yesterday in a very important press conference, we heard from Majid al-Ansari, the spokesperson for the Qataris, saying that we want peace, we want to find a way to work with the Iranians, and it's seen as an attack on the base. Of course, only one missile actually landed in the base. The rest were thankfully interested in midair. So militarily, very little impact. Politically, an impact that is quite bold in saying that the Iranians are willing to go quite far to try to secure not only this regime, from here, really is going to be set by whether this ceasefire can actually become a foundation to walk back from this all-out war.
We've seen a statement, I think we can bring up on these screens in the last couple of hours from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which also, of course, hosts US assets. This is a statement that was released after a call between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Emir of Qatar. Can we bring that up on these screens?
Being careful with potential inflation risks. We haven't overreacted. In fact, we haven't reacted at all. But we're being a little bit careful about that set of questions as we decide what to do next.
Thank you for bringing that up. We look at where we were, how far we had come in our economy, things were starting to save, and we were starting to finally see a relief on the interest rates. They were starting to go down. Now they're holding steady. Can you talk about why instability, when we look at Paris around the increase in the deficit by the proposed big ugly bill that is being brought through Congress right now, and having our credit downgraded again because we are increasing our deficit. So with this economic uncertainty, where we were going, we were on the way down for reducing our rates.
Conventions. in particular Common Articles 1 and 3 of these conventions. Dear colleagues, we were attacked in the midst of an ongoing diplomatic process. We were supposed to meet with Americans on 15 June to craft a very promising agreement for peaceful resolution of the issues fabricated over our peaceful nuclear program. It was a betrayal of diplomacy and an unprecedented blow to the foundation of international law and UN system. Let me be clear. If there is any use of costly systems and mechanisms we have created for the past 80 decades to preserve human rights and dignity, now is the time to do it. We need action now. Otherwise, the whole UN-based international law system would corrode badly. This is a historic moment for human civilization when a civilized nation has come under an unjust war of aggression. The world, every state, every UN mechanism and body has to be alarmed and has to act now to stop the aggressor, to end impunity and to hold the criminals accountable for their unending atrocities and crimes in our region. This is a call from someone who has allocated his whole life to dialogue and diplomacy, but who also is a veteran of an imposed war by Saddam regime and knows how to defend his beloved motherland. A peace-loving nation inheriting one of the most ancient civilizations that has made significant
I don't know if I see this where he's, bedroom life, but you're right, Melba. If they can simplify it and help everyone understand the element of the crime. I've said before, in terms of has the government proven it to the letter based on what I've seen in transcripts, all of that, they've proven this, but will the jury see it? That I don't know. I don't know if they're looking at this as Matthew said, are they looking at this as an abusive boyfriend, violent guy, drug user, whatever the case may be, and not a trafficker or racketeer. Let me clip. This is one of his voicemails, one of the rare moments throughout the trial where we get to hear Diddy. Let's watch.
Where my life is at right now, I don't have no time for no games, baby girl. Me and you can be mad, I can have a spat, we can have whatever. Then after that, you better get on your job. That's really, that's all it is. Cause you got me on my job. Nah, it ain't never gonna work like that over here. You know what I'm saying? I was trying not to leave this message, but you have left me no choice.
Ooh, get on your job. Lisa G, that was a moment, wasn't it, in this case, when the world heard that, huh? Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the major points of this case is if the jurors believe these women, and I'm hopeful that they try to understand why these women kept going back, left the voicemails they did. They were psychologically controlled by this man. And so I'm not the attorney in the case, but I'm crossing my fingers that the jurors try and hopefully understand that what was going on. They did not want to be there. He had psychological and financial control over these women. And so that's what I'm hoping for.
Right. Well said, Lisa. Matt, let me go to you next, please. Something I've thought a lot about. When it comes to the strength of the charges, where do you think the government's case is strongest? We've got 5 charges here, racketeering conspiracy being number 1, and then we've got sex trafficking and transportation to commit prostitution pertaining to Cassie Ventura, and then the same other 2 charges.
But as you said earlier, Julie, can they pull that all together now in a closing statement? Because what's easy for the jurors to understand is that, yes, he's an abusive guy. Yes, he's not a good guy. But does all the other stuff come together to show that he's in fact involved in racketeering and in sex trafficking? The defense is simple. It's consent. The prosecution is more difficult. It's trying to prove very difficult elements of sex trafficking and the unrelated charges.
Right. I think that trying to almost, it's almost like they have to, prove something here. Melba, dovetailing off of that point, curious your thoughts on that, having so much prosecutorial experience. Do you feel like it's almost like the government is, on a bit of a defensive venture here too, in addition to carrying their burden?
Yeah, absolutely. On the lack of the credibility, all of the different aspects that pulled together, like Capricorn Clark and all the different, victims, and talking about their testimony. But I think their strongest charges are going to be promoting prostitution.
I guess, as a recognized tribe, but they're growing in one place and selling in another place. Not only are they, and let's face it, folks, it's a casino operation, it's a destination. People are buying this stuff. You'd have to be out of your mind to think that they're going to dispose of whatever's not used by the time they leave. So we're moving to this island where it's legal, and then people are driving out. That people got to just take responsibility for transporting things they're not supposed to legally, but they're growing it in a patch of land that's not connected to the boundary, and I've got to believe that that's an illegal transport. At what point does it become trafficking? Because this is at scale. And so it's something that I'll be reaching out. I have with the prior administrator, Milgram, and I'm going to reach out and just give me a definitive answer. If it's a legal enterprise, fine, but I've yet to get an answer to it, and I'd like to get a crisp answer. I don't know. The other thing I want to say here is we're seeing stuff, Tutti Frutti. I don't know. Is that an adult targeted segment kind of name there? Or does it feel a little bit like you're attracting the younger audience for this sort of thing? And then maybe you are, because the chief of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee saying kids are getting testing positive for pot. So I wanted to use this here. I get the other part. The last thing I want to leave you with, I'm worried. I mean, we've got to get this under control. We have to realize that pot is going to be legal in this country in one form or another in virtually every other state. We can either figure out how to regulate it by putting a U.S. Department of Agriculture regimen in, an FDA regimen in, the same way that we do with alcohol and tobacco, or we're going to get way down the road without control over inputs. And the next thing the cartels are going to do is figure out how they can put other in the race for potency. Once they run out of how you can actually do this through the plants, they're going to figure out some way to make this more potent and more deadly. And I feel very strongly that we need to have a separate meeting about how do we create a construct that if states want to opt into, they can, not make it legal federally, or this is getting out of control. And this Eastern Band of the Cherokee anomaly is one example of what happens when Congress fails to act on something that I think it's time for us to act on. On behalf of the chair, Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks to the witnesses for being here. Thanks for the excellent work that you're doing. Fentanyl has been a major topic of discussion today, rightfully so. Fentanyl accounts for 70% of the drug overdose deaths in the United States. It's the leading cause of death, fentanyl is, in my state, the state of Missouri, for individuals over the age of 18. And we don't produce it in Missouri. It comes to us from across the border. It comes by the truckload, it seems, these days. Every community in the state, every school in the state is awash in fentanyl. And what I'm particularly concerned about are the latest efforts of cartels to send rainbow fentanyl into our borders, across our borders. I'm sure, Mr. Perez, you're familiar with this, the phenomenon of rainbow fentanyl, which is made to look like a candy. In fact, obviously, it's an extremely deadly drug.
Yes, sir, generally familiar with it.
Is it safe to say that the Mexican cartels are using rainbow fentanyl as a deliberate attempt to drive addiction among young people, among kids and young adults?
Yes, sir. I would say they're using fentanyl in general, regardless of who they're trying to addict. Yes, sir.
So here's the next thing that concerns me is that we've got the effort by the cartels to use rainbow fentanyl. We've got the effort by the cartels to target kids, and they're doing it more than they're selling it in ways other than just the classic back alley deal. They're using now social media apps in order to sell fentanyl. Let's take a look here at one example. This is from the big tech platform Snapchat. Snapchat's one of the worst offenders here. The Snapchat's platform, as you may know, features disappearing messages, anonymity. It also has real-time mapping features that make it easy for drug traffickers to access clients and especially young people. Snaps are often accompanied by code words and emojis that are designed to evade detection by law enforcement. In February of this year, a mother, Bridget Noring, sat where the three of you are sitting and testified. She lost her child, by the way, her 19-year-old kid, lost him to a fentanyl overdose after he got fentanyl through a snitch. And she testified, sitting where you're sitting, that she went to Snapchat. She alerted them to the kind of snaps that are posted on their platform. And she testified, here, this is the quote now, the first three things out of their mouth, meaning the Snap CEOs, were, number one, we have no idea this is happening on our platform. Number two, as parents, you should have been monitoring your child better. Charming. Number three, you can't sue us because we're protected under Section 8. Now, my question to the three of you is, wouldn't it be a big help to your efforts and to our efforts as a country to stop flow of fentanyl illegal drugs into this nation and from flowing into the hands of our shut down the platforms from selling and offering drugs and being a major platform for drug traffickers? Mr. Perez?
Yes, sir. I'll go back to about accountability from any institution that's facilitating this. I know our efforts through the J-Code, which I mentioned earlier, focusing on darknet and opennet type of trafficking, that's significant. We spend a lot of efforts on those types of cases.
Yeah, very good. I'm glad you used the word accountability. I think that's exactly what we need. And right now, I just want to point this out so everybody understands it. Right now, Snapchat and every other big tech platform have exactly zero accountability. Zilch. This is on their platform. It is there constantly. It is there in volume, and there is currently nothing any parent, any victim can do about it. I mean, just refer back to what this mother said, the Snap CEO said to her, it's your fault. We don't really have any idea about it. This is after she told them it was on their platform. By the way, they know. I mean, if these guys can direct the most precision advertising to you using their AI algorithms, you think they don't know that there's this kind of advertising all over their platform? They know. And then they said, the get out of jail free card, you can't just protect. I said this time and time again, it is time for this Congress to take action to allow victims to handle these companies when they put this kind of garbage, this sort of illegal activity on their platform. Victims ought to be able to sue Snapchat and any other big tech platform that traffics in this kind of illegal activity. And until Congress changes the law to allow victims and parents to sue, I think that this is just going to continue to go on. Let me give you one more example. Mr. Stevens, I'll direct this to you since I know that you're in the El Paso division. Here is an example of a Mexican cartel using a different social media app to try and hire American citizens to participate in human smuggling. So this is the kind of thing that's going on Snap, on Instagram, on TikTok, where these cartels are recruiting American citizens to come be smugglers, offering them pay, giving them instructions. And once again, they are using these social media apps, these big tech platforms to do it. Let me just ask you, Mr. Stevens, have you encountered this? Have you seen the cartels trying to recruit Americans to participate in their smuggling operations?
Thank you for your question, sir. Yes, we have multiple cases involving human smuggling as drug smuggling, where they use those social media platforms to be able to recruit drivers.
Wouldn't it be a help to you enforcement activities to be able to turn off?
Each and every state member and observer of the Human Rights Council has to stand up against this grave injustice. Israel has launched an unprovoked aggression on Iran in a stark violation of Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the Charter, and in bold defiance of all the principles and rules that the Council stands for. This is an unjust war imposed on my people since early hours of Friday, 13 June, when Israel perpetrated a mix of unlawful and operations against off-duty military personnel, university professors, and ordinary people. Hundreds of my fellow Iranians have been killed and injured following Israel's surprise armed attacks and terrorist operations on residential areas, public infrastructures, hospitals, health centers, and of course, the foreign ministry. Our peaceful nuclear facilities have also been targeted, despite their being under full monitoring of IAEA, and despite the fact that attacking such facilities are absolutely banned under international law. Israeli attacks on nuclear facilities are grave war crimes, given also the danger of environmental and health catastrophe as the result of radiological leakage. Mr. President, Iran, a founding member of the United Nations system, rightfully expects each and every one of you to stand for justice, rule of
In the backdrop of the Iran-Israel conflict, the NATO summit is certainly going to assume new dimensions with a prolonged conflict in Ukraine, a second front in Gaza, and a third now opening up with Iran and Israel. Let's listen in to what the U.S. President had to say yet again.
Dark with no moon, and they hit that target with every one of those things, and that place is gone. But when I see CNN all night long, they're trying to say, well, maybe it wasn't really as demolished as we thought. It was demolished. You take a look at the pinpricks, and you see that place is gone. And I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are. You're real losers. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people. And the people that run it, nobody even knows it's been sold so many times. But the people that run it ought to be ashamed. MSDNC, a guy named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a disgrace. He's a weak, pathetic disgrace.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on. I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
You generally do not, Dr.
Because they just found a little plastic cap in, believe the washing or in the dryer when they did the big search on Barry's home. And it was, oh boy, he's a deer farmer. Could he have done something sinister with this drug called BAM? Dr. Priya, the autopsy showed it was in her system. Talk to us, please, about what that would do to somebody's body.
Yeah, so there's no normal human use for this cocktail. It is paralyzing for big deer, right? So it's gonna, if she's injected with it, administered, she's done. Really, there's an opioid, it's basically a big tranquilizer. And so she's not gonna lose consciousness, be paralyzed, just like you would want a deer that you're chasing. So probably so strong and probably could overdose her right there.
Wow.
Facilitating these episodes of sex trafficking. Why was he not including them in the loop? Why was he trying not to have them be aware of it? It doesn't fit into a neat, concrete case of sex trafficking and racketeering. So there's a lot to break down here. We're going to take more of your questions. I want to bring on my all-star panel. So not only are we going to be taking your questions, I'm also going to be breaking down what's happening in court in real time. There's no cameras in the courtroom. There's no audio equipment in the courtroom. But we do have live reporting, and we'll break it down for you in real time. I'm joined right now by trial attorney Afi Patterson and also criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, and partner of Zealous Advocates, Jeremy Eldridge. It's great to have you both. Oh, look, and we also have this Melba Pearson, civil rights and law attorney, former prosecutor. Melba, I'm so happy to see you. It's good to all here. Melba, I'll start with you. Am I right? Am I right that these messages that this is picked not only to the jury, hey, these charts are unravel, it doesn't include full context, but is this really racketeering? Is this really a criminal enterprise that Sean Combs used all of his associates and his businesses to carry out episodes of sex trafficking? Why was he keeping them in the dark?
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. And I take a different tact when it comes to the text messages. I think that the text messages that show the deep involvement of Christina Quorum, the chief of staff for Diddy, are going to be the key aspects that the prosecution should be focusing on, especially when they get to closing arguments. Because she clearly, as chief of staff, she was not his personal assistant, not tied in some way, shape, or form to Bad Boy Productions or Bad Boy Enterprises. No, she was an integral part of the entire corporation. So with her being the leader in terms of booking the flights for the sex workers, making sure that Diddy had snacks and IVs and all of these things for the free coffee, that's going to be the avenue to show that he was involved in racketeering, more so than whether or not a random, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but like a random administrative assistant who
just this month after he part of the G7 summit in Canada a little more than a week ago, as the war between Israel and Iran was breaking out. Now he returns in the midst of a fragile ceasefire with diplomatic relations also on thin ice. Joining me now from the Netherlands is CNN's chief international anchor, Christian Amanpour. And Christian, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here because this is going to be the big topic of conversation. Some leaders are already here. I've just spoken to the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who has really passed the Oval Office test and is doing pretty well in his relationship with President Trump. And he has said that the Iranian response to those, big bombings of the nuclear sites, he believes that they match what President Trump says, that it was calibrated and potentially gives way for diplomacy. Take a listen.
I would lean towards President Trump's interpretation of it. The military action was also a diplomatic move by Iran. It was, we never welcome, obviously, hostilities and reactions, but it was proportionate. It was de-escalatory. It appears to have been previewed, which allowed, and they're Canadian soldiers at the Qatari base as well. So they were out of harm's way, yes. It gives an opening for diplomacy. I think that's the right way to put it. And the question is, does that diplomacy really get traction and move to ending this risk of proliferation? Does it lead as well to a broader ceasefire in the Middle East, including in Gaza?
And Audie, that is the question.